Definitely do not take a shot every time I use the word cozy in this video, because it would give you alcohol poisoning, and I don't want to be responsible for that. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I can't believe we have Birdie here with us today. It just is the cherry on top and fits the theme of the video kind of perfectly. So today we're going to be chatting about my top tips on how to live a cozier life. It's winter in many parts of the world, and I think a lot of us are also feeling the January blues. Honestly, my favorite compliment that we receive here on this channel is that you find our videos cozy. I would like to say that the spirit of coziness has always lived within me, but I think it really kicked off during the pandemic with being forced to, kind of slow down. And then when moving into this apartment, which gets a lot of great natural sunlight in this room and in the office, but our common space is kind of dark. And I knew when moving into this space that not only did I have to make it doable, but I wanted to make it enjoyable to live in the apartment as well. So even in the rooms that tend to lean a little bit more gloomy, I knew I had to do a little mindset shift to embrace the space that I'd be spending the majority of my time. Let's kick it off to my first tip, which goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about: ambient lighting. Now, the big light, we know her, we despise her, and in this house, the big light is not allowed. Although Aline loves to turn it on in the kitchen just because that room tends to get a little bit darker, but it drives me crazy, and I think we just need to use that as an excuse to get more lamps. I knew that lamps would be a key element of this apartment when we just had moved in, and I love treasure hunting for lamps. I found so many great lamps on Etsy, on Facebook Marketplace, at flea markets. They're really fun to find secondhand because they tend to be just a little bit more unique, have some character. I have 2 Tiffany style lamps in our living room, and not only do they bring in some great light to the space, but they also bring in warmth, whimsy, color, character, and overall just make the room a lot more inviting and friendly. So highly recommend lamps. Now, of course, we couldn't do this video without also touching on candles. I know it's kind of a generic tip, but I don't just want to touch on candles, but more so the idea of saving candles for when you have guests over, when you have a special occasion. I want to encourage you to use those candles. You deserve to enjoy your own candles, even when you're just having a casual night on the couch. And I swear, if I'm in a bad mood, if I'm feeling a little bit depressed, and even if I'm just watching a show, if I do a little pickup of the apartment and light a few candles, it automatically makes my time feel more intentional. I also love taper candles. I love candlestick holders. That's another one of my favorite things to thrift. So I think that incorporating candlesticks alongside your lamps is just, it'll automatically make your space feel a little bit more comforting and inviting. I know this isn't going to be realistic for everyone, but this next tip is to walk as a mode of transport. I have found that if I'm going to do something very mundane, like go to Trader Joe's, instead of taking the bus or the train, which, I'm a big fan of public transit. I use it all the time. But instead of taking the bus, I have started walking through Central Park and doing a little loop to get to the grocery store instead. And it just really elevates something that can be a little bit of a drag, and it turns it into just such a more enjoyable experience. So obviously, depending on where you live, if there is an opportunity to walk somewhere instead of stressing yourself out on a crowded train car or a bus or traffic while driving, stressing out about parking, highly recommend doing a little walk. My next tip is giving yourself the gift of time, which kind of piggybacks off the last point, but I have found that waking up even just 30 minutes earlier to give myself enough time to journal in bed with my coffee has just drastically improved my quality of life. I also used to be the type of person who was always running late for things, and I can still struggle with this from time to time, but I am so much better at it now, and it's actually a big point of pride for me. I try to give myself an extra 15 minutes to get somewhere. Again, going off my last point, if you can save yourself the experience of being stressed out and in a rush, that is peak cozy, honestly. Peak cozy living. I love going to Core Power on the Upper West Side, but it's about like an 18 to 20 minute walk for me. And for some reason in my head, I always convinced myself it only took me 15 minutes to get there. And I was always running late for class, always scrambling to fill my water bottle and go to the bathroom and put my mat down. And now I try to leave 30 minutes before the class starts so that I have plenty of time to get there and then get set up. Things like grocery shopping and workout classes, they take up our time, our energy, our money. So we might as well make those experiences as pleasant as possible. And I think that avoiding being stressed out and in a rush and like frantically trying to get from point A to point B is a great way to overall just make those things more enjoyable and get the most out of them. My next tip is making your resting time intentional. So I'm a huge fan of rotting on the couch. I'm a huge fan of watching TV and scrolling on my phone, but it's literally the worst when you emerge from your like rotting time and you don't even feel well rested. You don't feel refreshed. You just feel kind of like gross and stressed out. So if there's anything you can do to make your resting time intentional resting time, like time that you're actually recharging and replenishing yourself. So if you're watching TV, can you get a little blanket and light some candles, maybe get a little fun drink? I'm a huge fan of an Olipop situation, but the fun drink could be a hot chocolate, a glass of wine, any small things you can add to this chill time to just make it a lot more restorative versus something that's just gonna make you feel like depleted energy-wise. My next tip is taking advantage of the coffee shop ambiance videos on YouTube. You can also use like a Yule log or the crackling fireplace on Netflix as well, but I'm a huge fan of these ambiance videos. I swear to God, they just lower my heart rate. I feel so much more relaxed when they're on. Even sometimes when I'm working from home on my couch, I'll put one on and I'll just feel so much more at ease. Again, it feels so much more cozy and intentional. Some of these videos have jazz music and just little like coffee shop sounds, and they're so soothing. So highly recommend. They're also free, so take advantage of these free tools and resources to just cozyify your day-to-day. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my list that I have on my notes app, but the next tip is swapping mindless scrolling for a more restorative hobby. Chelsea Fagan, who I love on TikTok, did a really great video on habits that are kind of perceived as negative by society that she does and still manages to live a very lovely life. And one of those is being chronically online. And that is me to a T. I'm such an online girly, but at the same time, we all know that it can also go too far. We've all been there. It's when the scrolling is mindless and again, not intentional. I feel like I'm using the word intentional a lot too in this video, but when that scrolling is just kind of mindless, it's doom scrolling, it's just sucking your energy and like spiking your cortisol levels, that's when I think that swapping scrolling for a more restorative hobby can really come in handy. I personally really love journaling and reading, but it could be anything that you gravitate towards. It could be knitting, something that keeps your hands busy. It's not gonna work if it's something that you hate doing, but whatever that restorative hobby is for you, really lean into that in those moments of, you know, having those itchy fingers that just want to scroll for the rest of time. Next is reframing dark and gloomy days to cozy days. I'm a person that really thrives when there's sunlight out. My ideal day would be a blue sky day, but obviously we can't control the weather, and especially during winter when days are shorter and darker. I don't do this every day by any means, but reframing a gloomy, depressing day into being a cozy day just feels so much better for me. On days like this, maybe you can put on your favorite cozy sweater, grab an umbrella, and do a little walk even if it's raining outside. Maybe you can do some baking and make a recipe that you've been meaning to do, or make it a point to light some candles while you watch TV or read on the couch. Maybe you can put on some fuzzy socks, snuggle up with a blanket. I know these days can be really hard on your mental health, so any sparks of joy that you can implement into your day-to-day to just kind of like lift your spirits up and feel a little bit warmer, a little bit happier, have little things to look forward to. Not only does it make winters more bearable, but it just makes life more fun in general. Like, I do all this stuff all year round. And my last tip is to slow down and remind yourself that it is a very natural human instinct to want to slow down and hibernate during the winter months. I think this reminder is so important, especially in January with this weird pressure to kind of just like hustle and, you know, get back to work after the holiday season. And it's really not in our nature to do that. So I think that trying to unpack that guilt and just allow yourself the permission to take the nap, to lie down in the afternoon, to sleep in when your body needs it, to stay in instead of going out if that's what you're gravitating towards. If we're beating ourselves up for resting, then we're not even getting the full benefits of resting. So just a friendly reminder that it is not only okay, but it's in our nature to want to cuddle up during this time of year. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I did try to film this video like 3 different times because I've been messing around with the camera settings, and I'm hoping that this one turns out. Fingers crossed for me and my sanity. But let me know if you have a tip for a cozier life. I'm always looking to add more to my repertoire. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Apparently that tells YouTube to actually show our content to other people. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok to keep up with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.